Links to previous episodes are given in the video description, so don't forget to like, subscribe and share the video. The Wolf She Never Knew. Episode 2. Chapter 10. I ended up bumping into Everest on the walk back. I felt myself calming down in his presence. We went and took a shower and got dressed. He had food ordered and brought up to his room in the pack house. We ate together in a comfortable silence. My mind was racing and I had so many questions about being a Lycan. I knew Lycans lived longer than wolves and humans, but how long? How old was he? How much stronger are we? Do I get to train? Do I have to go through special training and can I get special tutoring to learn our lifestyle? So many new things and experiences, but first we must go through with this ceremony and we will be off tomorrow. I don't know if he's going to stop the Alpha ceremony from happening and reject him as the Alpha. Maybe we can figure something out. He is strong and he will be a great leader, one day, but he needs extra training. You okay? He was looking at me with a fork of food paused in front of his mouth. Yeah, just caught up in my own thoughts about tomorrow and our future. I smiled at him. What about tomorrow? He went back to eating. Well, it is the Alpha ceremony tomorrow. I know you said you wanted to reject him as the Alpha of the pack. I approached it cautiously. Ryder was my ex-mate and as much as he hurt me, the pack needs a strong leader. He might be stupid but I had no hard feelings about him anymore. He nodded and set his fork down with a sigh. Go on. Well, what if you don't reject him as the Alpha of the pack? I took a bite and he shook his head at me. Before he could talk I quickly spoke, hear me out before you say anything. He is strong, stupid but strong. What if you send him on like a training retreat? Where he goes to different packs, big packs that he can learn how to do things properly. I watched as he contemplated on the idea. You know that just might work. It'll be just enough embarrassment, but if he does well he will not only learn but be a better leader at the end of everything. Brilliant idea, sweetie. You will make a very fair and excellent future queen. His smile widened and he reached for my hand. His fingers gingerly caressed over the palm of my hand before taking it in his own. How was your dinner? He asked as I was stuffing the last huge bite of my steak covered with the baked potato and the last piece of broccoli. I chewed it carefully and only nodded at him, holding up both my thumbs. He responded with a laugh. I'll take it that it was delicious then. He stood and picked up the plates and left the room. When he came back he had a huge bowl of ice cream sundae. We shared it and made small talk about tomorrow. I was kind of excited to have a day of pampering. Hair and nails done, makeup done, and a massage with my best friend. It had been a very long tense day. I set my spoon down in the bowl and looked up at him as he lifted the bowl and set it on the table. How about a hot relaxing bath? I know we showered so you can pull your hair up. He was already walking to the adjoining bathroom. That sounds nice. I watched as he disappeared in the bathroom and I heard the water running. The floral smell of lavender soon filled the air. I made my way into the bathroom and looked at the man in there. My eyes traveled over his body. His shirt was off and I got a good look at him. His muscles flexed under his skin as he moved. I found myself biting my bottom lip. Charlotte was also peering through my eyes at her mate. She also liked what she saw. Ready? He turned to look at me and all I could manage was nodding my hand. He turned around to the wall, being respectful as I undressed and stepped into the deep tub, sinking down into the water. Okay, I am in. I turned to look at him. He walked over to the sink, opened the door and picked up a loofah. Taking the tag off and throwing it the trash. I reached out for it and he shook his head. I will do it. You relax. I turned my back to him as I figured that's what he meant. It was a moment but I felt the water move and felt his legs around me in the water. He eased himself into the water and began washing me. His hands ran along my shoulders, massaging and washing at the same time. His hands moved to my neck, his fingers dancing across my skin. I closed my eyes and enjoyed the magic his hands were producing. It felt like heaven. I couldn't believe the moan that passed through my lips. It felt like an electrical wave flowed through my body and settled right between my legs, throbbing and aching for him. I leaned back into him, giving him more access to whatever he wanted. His head dipped down and placed a trail of soft kisses along my shoulders. Our tongues intertwined and pressed against one another. I wanted him, all of him, every single inch of him. Amazing. I breathed almost breathlessly. I was fighting my wolf's urge to mark you, we haven't discussed it and generally royalty marks in front of everyone. But we are far away from my home. He pushed a strand of hair away from my face. I nodded and tried hiding my yawn and curled up tighter into his side, moving my head to his chest. His fingers danced across my bare skin on my back. I listened to the sounds of his breathing and his heart beating in his chest. It was the sweetest music to my ears and soon I was fast asleep. When I woke in the morning, the bed was empty and he was gone. I frowned and looked around the room listening for anything and there was just silence. I looked over to the side table and saw a handwritten note. Good morning my beautiful mate, you looked so peaceful sleeping I did not wish to wake you so early. I have meetings with your soon-to-be old pack about today. I need to tell them of your brilliant plan on sending that mutt to different packs to learn how to truly lead. If he wants her to be his Luna, well she should go train and learn how to be a proper Luna herself. I already miss you. Enjoy your day of being pampered. I will see you for lunch. Love, Everest. I smiled and folded up the note, sitting it on the table beside me. I got up and showered last night's events off of me. I smiled remembering the night we shared together. I was just about ready when I heard someone knocking on the door. Come in. I looked at the door as I put on my white sandals. Claire walked in and she looked around the room. Well, this is super nice. Hey. Yeah, but it's not welcoming or homey feeling. I walked over to her and hugged her. That is true, but it has a elegant touch to it. She smiled and returned the hug. Yeah, I suppose you are right. Ready to go? I walked over and gathered my things. Yeah, there is a limo outside for us with a light breakfast inside. She wiggled her brows. Oh nice. I wonder why we are taking a limo. I questioned. Really, you're mated to a Lycan prince. When you all mark each other you will be announced as a princess in front of all the high-ranking Lycans and the high-ranking alphas and betas of the strongest packs in their territory. She rolled her eyes. Oh yeah. It's just kind of hard to wrap my mind around. I went from a nobody to being mated to a Lycan and being a Lycan myself. I laughed. We ended up eating bagels with cinnamon cream cheese, fresh fruit consisting of apples, oranges, strawberries, watermelon, and cantaloupe, and washed down with orange juice. It was absolutely delicious and hit the spot. We started the morning off with massages. We were served with mimosas and bottled water. Being a Lycan and a wolf, we didn't go by the legal age limit to be able to drink like the humans. Our bodies functioned way differently, and even the hard stuff that could get a human plastered barely gave us a good buzz for an hour. I got a full body with hot stones massage and a full facial. I felt so relaxed and refreshed when we left. I could so get used to that. After we got massages, it was lunchtime and we met Everest and my brother at a local sandwich shop. I had a club sandwich and broccoli and cheese soup with a sweet tea. It was pretty good. We chit-chatted for about 30 minutes. We discussed the plans for this evening and how the meeting about Ryder and Jamie went. There was resistance at first, but once everything was explained and laid out, Alpha Michael understood and eventually agreed. A contract was drawn up and signed. When Claire and I left, we went to get our nails done. I got something simple to match my dress with the ring finger, a silver sparkle tone. We then got our hair done and our makeup and rode back to the pack house. We had about 30 minutes to kill before we had to get dressed and be back at the pack house. We swung by a local coffee shop and grabbed some iced coffees. I ended up getting an iced white chocolate mocha with 2 extra pumps of white chocolate. It was just what I needed. The cherry on top, I guess you could say, to a pretty much perfect day. We arrived at the pack house and were greeted by some of the Omegas who took whatever bags we had. I was about to protest before Claire stopped me. Let them. You are soon to be princess after all. I only nodded at her as I sipped on my coffee and we walked inside. We split up to go get ready in our rooms. My dress, shoes, and my handbag were already out and waiting for me. I set my coffee down and looked at my gorgeous dress. It was a very expensive dress and I have never worn anything so expensive before. I was kind of nervous to wear it, if I was being honest. My fingers ran over the beadwork and rhinestones. It was so beautiful, I didn't want to ruin it. I sighed and stepped back to get a better look at it. I shrugged and figured I best get it on. I stepped into the dress and was able to zip what little needed to be zip. The sweetheart neckline was elegantly decorated and the low dip in the back exposed my flawless skin. I stood in front of my mirror looking at myself and how the dress sparkled, even under this lighting. I couldn't wait to see how it sparkled with my movements under the light at the ceremony. Apparently these ceremonies are more than just giving over a pack to an alpha, there's dancing and dinner too. A lot of dancing, to be honest. It made me a bit nervous because I can't dance. Well, I can, but not very good. I slipped on my shoes as the door opened to our room and in walked my mate. He was already dressed in his navy suite that matched my dress. It was the exact shade. The shop did their job well. He crossed the room to me and pulled me into his arms. His lips softly brushed against my own and I felt them turn up into a smile. "Ready?" I asked him. "Almost," he replied as he stepped back and pulled out a long rectangle box from inside his jacket. "I got this for you." My eyes were fixed on the box as he opened it. In the box sat a beautiful diamond and sapphire necklace with matching earrings. "Oh, it is so beautiful." I looked up and smiled. "May I assist you in placing the necklace on you?" I nodded and turned around after he took the necklace and held the box that only had the earrings left. He placed the necklace around my neck and closed the clasp. His lips managed to trail along my bare shoulder and it sent a shiver of pleasure through my body. I stepped away and put on the earrings. I could feel his eyes on me, watching every move I make. I turned to him and gave him a bright smile. I heard his air suck in some and I let out a small laugh. We better leave this room before I strip every article of clothing off of you and keep you in that bed. His eyes were turning dark and I stepped over to him and wrapped my arms around his waist. You say that as if it's a bad thing. I pulled him down to me for a quick kiss. But you're right. It would be rude to keep them waiting for your arrival. I pulled away and a low growl radiated through his chest. We walked downstairs and made our way to the largest conference and ballroom the pack has to offer. The doors opened and we walked inside to an already crowded room. The conversations around us hushed to whispers as we passed by groups of wolves. I could hear them as if they were talking normal. Who is that with the prince? How is that wolfless girl so close? Oh, he's handsome. I would love to be her. Wolfless girl is a tramp, that's the only reason he's with her. His hand tightened in mine as I felt my anger and possessive side coming to the surface. My Leekan would love to come out to play right now. Easy, love. He whispered into my ear, ignore them, they will soon find out. His lips brushed my ear softly with a kiss. I only nodded as we stopped walking in front of Alpha Michael, his son Ryder and Jamie. Good evening to you both. Alpha Michael bowed. Wow! Was all Ryder managed to get out? I could feel Jamie's anger radiating off of her in waves. How funny! I offered a warm smile in Alpha Michael's direction, never casting a look to Ryder or Jamie. I felt Everest's protective arm about my waist and pull me to him. I glanced up to him and he had a brooding look on his face. Let us get this over with, shall we? Alpha Michael suggested and we all nodded. We sat in our chairs on the raised stage above the crowd of pack members. As focused as everyone was upon the Alpha, I could still feel eyes straying to me. Everest was announced to give a speech and he coded it as a new outlook for new alphas in reuniting packs and making bonds stronger. He went into a spill of how new alphas are thrown into a role and not given much direction at such a young age. A new program he has come up with for future alphas to travel to the strongest packs to learn different ways of being a great and fair alpha. Future Lunas can shadow other Lunas, especially if they were not born in the Alpha or Beta bloodline. His eyes darted to Jamie and I watched her shrink some in her chair. Once the completion of the program he would officially become the Alpha of the pack. It is a new transitional phase and Ryder would be the test subject. Mouths dropped and whispers filled the room. Settle down. His voice boomed across the room and it was so quiet you could hear a pin drop. We still have a reason for celebration tonight. I, Prince Everest, have found my mate, your future queen of the Northern Territory. She is from your pack. He turned to me and held out his hand. I looked back at the crows whose eyes were now glued to me. I stood slowly and walked over to him. My hand slipped into his own as I watched him bring it to his mouth for a soft kiss. I smiled and I felt heat travel through my body. I knew my face must be red. I turned to face the pack that I would soon be leaving. I heard the clapping and looked and soon a second. It started with Claire and now the entire room had erupted in cheers. I smiled and looked up to my mate and he softly kissed my lips. I returned the small kiss and we stood in front of the crowd of people. As we stepped down from the stage we talked to people who congratulated the prince on his newfound mate. The evening was filled with dancing and delicious food. We ended up walking outside to the outdoor garden that was lit up with twinkle lights, giving off a romantic hue. When are we leaving? I looked up at him. Tomorrow. He smiled back. It will be a 2-hour car ride to the airport and a 5-hour plane ride. A wonderful day full of traveling. Wow, that's so soon. I looked around taking in everything. Suddenly my stomach in knots. Don't worry, your family is here. We can visit as often as possible. They can visit the kingdom as much as they would like to. So tomorrow I get to meet your family. I felt him nod. I hope they like me. They will love you. He kissed my head, wrapped his arms around me and pulled me into a slow dance as romantic music was heard from inside. We danced together under the moonlight. When the moon was at the right height the pack decided to go for a run together. We joined them in our Leaken form and pulled the moon's energy, running through the woods all night. POV I watched from a distance the masking scent would soon wear off. There stood what was once promised to me in the wrong arms. He still has yet to mark her. If she was mine, and she soon would be, I would have already made her mine. I suppressed a growl when their lips met in a kiss. I retreated back into the darkness when I heard talks of shifting and harnessing the moon's energy. I cannot be spotted here, alone. The journey to the Northern Territories Kingdom was nearly an all-day event. I packed what few decent clothes I had and left the rest at home. Everest told me I was more than welcome to go shopping for anything I would need or want. After announcing me as his mate in front of my pack, word spread quickly that the prince had found his fated mate. It was all over the social media platforms, our photos. Some good comments, bad ones, and occasional thirst from all sides. One comment, however, stood out to me: if she was his true mate, how come she is left unmarked? I clicked it. AMD read all the replies. He's a royal, she must meet the family. She is obviously unworthy. Royals mark after the king's approval. Maybe he will reject her so I can have a chance. Royals mark one another in a marking ceremony in front of all the northern noble lichens. He is just following protocol. If you were at the Alpha ceremony you would have obviously witnessed how very smitten they are of one another. I smiled at the last comment before closing the app out and clicking my phone off. I looked out the window and could see the ground now. The clouds have finally cleared out and we seem to be flying over a mountain range of some kind. I looked over to Everest, who had been working non-stop on his laptop. He said he had neglected some paperwork, but it was understandable seeing how he found his mate, had issues with a stupid mutt of an alpha who wasn't ready, and trying to find out where I had come from. I sat across from him and watched his face. It was cold and hard, his brows gathered together in a serious look as he frowned at the screen. Everything okay? My head tilted to look down at the granola bar I was fumbling with. It's nothing you should really worry with. My father just sent me a shocking email. The king of the Southern Territory was murdered and his eldest son nearly died. In his absence, his younger brother is leading the Southern Lichens. He sent a reassuring smile. Oh. Do they have any leads on who done it? I took a bite out of my granola bar. No, no one saw it coming. The three were out on a hunt together, got separated, that's when they were found, left for dead. Unfortunately, the king did not make it. He sighed. I'm sorry. I offered and he gave a small shrug. I didn't really know him. Only met him a handful of times. He sighed and closed his laptop. Regardless of the situation, I find it odd that the younger brother was left unharmed. I frowned and moved my attention back to the window. I noticed the mountain range changing slowly as we flew over them. Interesting, the younger sibling, who is older than I, has always resented not being the next in line for being king. He stood and my attention went to him. There isn't much we can do, even if that is true. It is not in our territory. Until it crosses in our lands or the eldest brother reaches out for help, our hands are tied. Oh, well, let's hope that drama stays over there. Whatever happened though is a sad situation any way you look at it. I sighed. Yes indeed. He sighed and walked off to the front of the plane. I watched his large frame move easily through the small plane. Really, the plane was huge, but he made it seem so small with his height and muscular physique. I overheard him talking to the pilot and my attention drifted to looking outside the window once again. It appeared to be a cloudless and sunny day wherever we were. I could see the sections of the ground, split between a river and then the tops of a bunch of trees. I wondered to myself if that was another pack. It seemed to be the perfect spot with the river and the tree coverage. My attention was caught by Everest as he sat next to me. The pilot said it should only be a few more hours. He pulled me closer to him. That's nice. What are they doing? I motioned over to Jameson and Ted. They were at a table too small over a paper that looked to be a map and writing things down. Oh, just working on border patrol shifts, nothing too crazy. Oh, all right then. I relaxed into him and sipped on my water. A few hours later our plane touched down and moved along the runway. When it came to a stop we stood and walked over to the open door. As I descended down the stairs I noticed that 4 black SUVs were waiting for us. Our luggage was being placed in the back of one carefully. The men and women who were there stopped and stood still, their heads bowed as we stepped onto the pavement of the runway. My mate's arm snaked around me and he kissed me. Welcome home. These lichens here travel with us at all times while we are home. They help ensure our safety in case of an attack. Especially now that I have found my mate. I see that it has doubled. His eyes glanced over to a man who was tall and bulky. You know your father. He just wants you and your mate protected. He said in a gruff voice. I extended my hand outward to him. Hello, I am Avalynn. He smirked and took my hand in his and gave it a gentle squeeze. I am Xander, head of your security team. He smiled at me. I returned the smile to him. Well, it is very nice to meet you, Xander. I am sure we will be seeing a lot of one another. He nodded his head at me. I am sure we will, Princess. We got into the vehicles and made our way to what would now be my new home. I looked out the window, taking in the sights of this foreign city. Tall buildings surrounded us on both sides as we drove, but they soon faded to forest of big evergreens and thick foliage of bushes and other plants. I could feel them, the pack of lichens. They were close by now, and that when I saw the silver fur of one. They were running alongside the car at the road's edge. Protection detail, just in case. Everest leaned over, telling me in just a whisper. I nodded my head in return, moving closer to him. I don't know why, but I got anxious feeling and my stomach felt as if it would purge itself of all its contents. His hand rested on my lap as his thumb caressed my leg. I felt a little better at that, so I decided to just completely lean into him. It worked, the anxious and nervous feeling was all but gone. He chuckled a bit when I sighed happily. It's going to be okay, Ava. Nothing to worry about. Besides, when we arrive we need to settle in before meeting anyone. I am sure you would like to freshen up in our room before we go down for dinner. Sir. The driver called from up front. Yes. Everest sounded slightly annoyed to be interrupted. Nothing was said, but I could tell they were using their mind link for communication. Just like that, right on cue, my nervousness was back in full force. I blurted out to them both, he's meeting us right when we arrive. Eyes looked at me in shock and I looked at me in shock but also confusion. How did you hear that? I didn't, just a guess. I shrugged it off, but I knew, and it was like a faint whisper. I felt my leakin laughing. You're gifted. You can hear thoughts and it will be stronger soon. She retreated back into my mind smiling. I hummed out and bit my lip. I wondered if that meant it would all flood my mind soon or I could pick and choose. I was lost in my own thoughts when the car came to a stop. I was so wrapped up in my own mind I didn't realize the huge castle-like structure when drove up to. I watched as the gates opened up and we passed through. Guards bowing as we passed. Inside was like a smaller city and people stopped to take a look at the vehicles passing. The children waved excitedly but their parents bowed their heads out of respect. I wanted to roll my window down and return the wave of the small children, but I refrained. I heard Claire in the back of my mind lecturing me on how to act like a princess and I rolled my eyes. What does she know? I thought with a smile. I missed my best friend. When we came to a stop again, I sat up in my seat looking at the actual castle. It was absolutely enormous and breathtakingly beautiful. It was a full beige stone structure with green vines decoratively traveling along parts of it. It had different towers that seemingly kissed the clouds. Almost every window had beautiful baskets of flowers hanging from them. Some windows were artistically done with stained glass, capturing beautiful details. My door opened and I stepped out, gazing at the beautiful castle that is now my home. Beautiful is all I could manage to say. I hadn't even noticed that the king was standing nearby. Thank you, was a voice I hadn't heard before and I went rigid instantly as I felt a wave of power wash over me. I bowed my head immediately and I felt so foolish for not paying attention. Why hadn't anyone said anything when my door opened? I wanted to whimper as his powerful aurora felt like it was consuming my body, waiting for me to beg for mercy. I stood strong though and stood my ground. When he clapped with a jovial laugh, the powerful surge of dominance was gone with it. I am sorry, love. He wanted to, had to really, test to make sure we were actually true mates. If you were working with a witch to be gaining power, you would have crumbled on the spot. He explained as we walked over to the king, who was happy to see his son. They greeted one another with hugs, smacking each other's backs and swapping pleasantries. Father, this is my mate, Avalynn. I found her in the wolf pack I went to visit. His arm snaked around my waist and pulled me into him. Wolf pack? But she is not a wolf. She is a Lycan. He sniffed the air towards me, and she is of royal blood. He frowned at me for just a moment. What were you doing hiding with wolves? His eyes narrowed at me. I didn't really know how to answer him, and I stood there with my mouth open like a fool. I only gave a small shrug before Everest cut in and saved me. She only recently found out she was a Lycan on her birthday earlier in the week. He began, and the king's eyes widened, darting between us both. You see, she was dropped off during a time of war amongst her people with only a note. A note? The king asked, a bit confused. Yes, it's packed away with our important documents from the trip. I'll let you look at it and you may be able to offer more detail. You've been around a lot longer and have seen much more than any of us or anyone in that pack. Very well, after dinner we will all discuss important matters. Welcome home, son, and welcome to your new home, dear. He offered a bright and warming smile, and I felt more at ease. We walked to our room, and when the door was unlocked and opened, I stepped inside looking around. It was like a large apartment. When you walked in, it was a living area with a large sectional, and a TV was mounted on the wall. Off the living area was a dining space that was open to the kitchen. I left my things by the door as I walked around looking at things. The kitchen had quartz countertops that waterfalled to the marbled floor. The cabinets were two-toned with navy and a soft grey. White tile ran along the wall for backsplash. We walked through the rest of my now new home and checked out the spacious bedrooms and the luxurious bathrooms. The tub was so large it was almost the size of a hot tub. I couldn't wait to get in and test it out. I know Everest saw my excitement because he stood there with a lopsided smile. So, if you don't like how it is decorated, please feel free to decorate it any way you want. I believe it needs my mate's feminine touch. Other than that though, how do you like it? He pulled me into his arms. It's beautiful and very elegant. I love it. I cuddled into his arms and enjoyed this moment together. He tilted my chin up to look at him, and I gave him a small smile. He was so very handsome with his strong features. He leaned down and captured my lips in a tender kiss. Our lips moved together in one, and I felt my Lycan purring under his touch. She so wanted to bear his mark on her, but we had to wait until it was announced for the entire kingdom and all the northern territories. It almost felt as if he was seeking approval, but this was just my anxiety talking. I knew this wasn't true. Royals did things by the book and there were protocols in place. We had to have the announcement and my crowning as an official princess, then he would be able to mark me. This would all happen within the next week. It's unnatural for Lycans to hold back marking their mates. We, from what I have learned so far, live much longer than wolves. When we turn 18, our aging slows down due to our supernatural side coming out. Just as wolves live longer than humans, we live longer than wolves. So, generally it takes much longer for Lycans to find their mates, rare honestly. The fact that we found one another is a blessing all on its own. Are you okay? He was looking down at me and I nodded my head. Oh yes, I was just thinking about this next week. I nervously chewed on my bottom lip. Oh. I see. He chuckled before letting me go and helping me settle my things in the room. I don't know what the plan will be, but I am sure we will discuss this at dinner. I raised my brow at him. Yes, most definitely. Which means you will have to have another formal dress to wear. He gave me a lopsided grin. Ugh, I hate dress shopping. I rolled my eyes and hung up the last pair of pants. Probably need to get appropriate clothing too while I am at it. Sure, take the card tomorrow and get whatever you will need. But for now, let's get washed up and go down to eat dinner. Sound good? Sounds good. I ended up getting washed up and changing from comfortable clothing to a pale blue and yellow sundress with flats. It was the nicest thing I owned, and compared to his black slacks and button-down shirt I felt like I didn't belong. I walked back into the bathroom and curled my hair, pinning it halfway back. I done my face with light makeup and I looked at myself in the mirror. I thought to myself that this would have to do, I didn't grow up with money after all. I walked back out and was welcomed by his handsome smile. Ready? His hands slid into his pockets and I nodded. We walked out and down the dining hall. It was more of a private dining hall and I knew this one was more for family, his second in command and a few guests at most. It was still large, but it was still half the size of the formal dining hall. It looked like it could hold hundreds of guests. I held his hand tightly as he led me into the room. Eyes immediately snapped to us and I could feel the power and strength radiating in the room. As my eyes looked around the room, I saw one woman who was smiling happily at us. She was sitting next to Jameson and I returned the smile. Another woman had an expressionless look and I saw her eyes travel down and back up before looking away uninterested. When we sat down, I was between the woman who seemed all too excited to meet me and Everest. We went through greetings and the woman I was sat next to was Amber, Jameson's mate. She was beautiful with long blonde hair, sun-kissed tan skin, green eyes, a sharp nose, and she appeared to be tall and curvy. Jameson was tall too, appearing to stand well over 6 feet with Everest taller than him. Everyone was happy for Everest to find his fated mate, well, all except for Sarah. She seemed indifferent and couldn't care less about meeting me. Amber and I chatted throughout dinner about where I came from. We were on the topic of growing up in our wolf pack when Sarah decided to join the conversation. So you're a wolf? Ha! That's great! The most eligible Lecan prince, she made air quotes with her hands, is mated to a wolf, and a small one at that. He deserves better than you. I let out a growl and she flinched away, looking at me shocked. The growl rumbled through the room. Heads and eyes snapped to me. I never moved from my spot and did not glance around the room. I kept my eyes locked onto her. Is that a challenge? I growled between gritted teeth. She regained her composure and shook her head. No, not at all. You should learn to hold your tongue around me about my mate unless you want me to rip it from your throat. It was complete silence in the room and you could hear a pin drop. Suddenly a hand clapped and the Lecan King let out a laugh. Avalynn, dear, don't worry about her too much. She simply has pined over someone who has never wanted her. He glared in her direction and I looked over to her and she shrunk back into her seat with her head down. The rest of dinner went smoothly. I finished my story and Amber clung to every word. By the time I finished the story, everyone was listening to me. I told them everything that had happened from my birth family leaving me to the day I met Everest and my life changed. After dinner we went to Everest's father's office to discuss everything and pull out old books from previous wars. The last war was over 75 years ago. The war between the small southeastern territory and the southern territory. The Southern Territory was promised the first female born from the king and queen, but when the princess found her fated mate they allowed her to be marked by him and pulled out of their deal. This angered the Southern king and war commenced between the two sides. It was a slow and brutal war. The Southern king slowly and surely took over their kingdom. Packs were wiped out over years. They went months in between their attacks, always retreating. When the queen became pregnant, the attacks suddenly stopped. When the baby of the king and queen was only a month old, a letter was sent to them. In the letter it demanded that the king and queen could stop the war as long as the princess was promised to one of the king's sons. The promise should be upheld and their daughter should be sent to the Southern Territory once in school age. Naturally the king and queen refused, and that is when the Southern Territory brought the entire force to their front door. They killed the king, but when they found the queen she was alone and the daughter was gone. They waited until she crossed back into her territory to capture her. No one knows if she's alive or dead. I had tears running down my face. I may have not known them, but their love for me ran deep into my heart and soul. They acted out of love for me and protected me at all costs. I was angry at the Southern Territory and was glad that the king was dead. He deserved it after what he put my family through. Everest brought me back to the present when his hand brushed over my own, giving a small grasp. Avalynn, are you okay? My eyes snapped to his and I could feel my mood instantly shift. My anger simmering down and I sighed softly. It's just a lot of information to take in. It is understandable. You have been through it all in just a short amount of time. You have been bombarded by a ton of information that should have been learned over a longer period of time. The king stood and walked over to his window. You are strong, don't ever doubt yourself. You may have grown up around wolves and then treated as a human these last few years, but you a Lycan. A strong Lycan with endless opportunities and abilities. I hope you begin training alongside our warriors. He turned and looked over at me. I nodded my head at him. I would love to. When do we start? Tomorrow morning. 5 a.m. sharp. If you're late they'll make you run 10 miles every 5 minutes. Afterwards you can take a shower and go out with Amber. Everest patted my arm. My attention turned to him. Amber is coming. Of course she will be. She knows the best shops to get all of your clothes. She is also the head event planner. She will need to pull all your ideas or your vision together. He smiled. You two best get some rest. It is a busy week. The king motioned to the door. It was an absolute pleasure, Avalynn. He smiled at me. Thank you for welcoming me into your kingdom. I stood alongside of Everest and we made our way back to our apartment. Tomorrow I will have you in a lower class to see what skills you have and how well you can fight. We will move you based on your strength and abilities. But for now you're mine. He lifted me into his arms and his lips crashed into mine. We spent the evening in each other's arms and tangled between the bed sheets. Sleep evaded me at every turn. I kept dreaming of a faceless monster who kept to the shadows, giving me the feeling someone was watching me and feeding him information and details on my whereabouts. I woke just before 4 in a sweat. I sat up and decided to get myself ready. I was in the middle of changing when I swear I saw a pair of red eyes peering in from a branch. When I did a double take they were gone. I must be pulling what was in my dream out to real life. I got myself ready and I made my way into the kitchen. The feeling of someone watching me never fully went away. My Leekan could also sense the prying eyes upon us. It made me nervous and a bit on edge. I closed all the blinds and curtains throughout the rooms, not wanting anyone looking inside our area. I was making a cup of coffee when I felt arms around me, making me jump and send my elbow flying into a set of ribs. Oof! Goddess, are you okay? It's just me. He wheezed between sharp breaths. I turned and looked at his pained expression with a horrified look on my face. Oh goddess! No, I am sorry. I feel like we are being watched. I had this dream that something evil was watching me, and I swear that I saw red eyes in our room. I chewed on my bottom lip. He frowned. Only Lycans who have red eyes are high-ranking or royals, same with wolves, only alphas. His brows deepened into his frown as his hands still rubbed on his side. I must have really hurt him. I don't know my own strength yet. Sorry about that again. I didn't mean to hurt you. But yes, the eyes looking at me were red. But my mind could have been playing tricks on me from my dream too. I sighed and sipped on my cup of coffee. Today was already starting out eventful, hopefully it ends uneventful. I finished my coffee and Everest escorted me to the training grounds. He and another big, broad, and muscular Leekan put me through strength and conditioning classes. Turns out I was a complete natural learner, super strong, and quick too. Even if I was a female, I was outpacing some of the warriors who have been training all their lives. It was to be somewhat expected considering I am of a royal bloodline. When everything was done and over with, I went up and showered. It was just at 9 when I went down for breakfast in the dining area. Breakfast was buffet style since everyone was coming and going with their busy schedules. Everest was sitting in a big chair, a plate of waffles, eggs, bacon, and sausage mounted on his plate. On another plate there was 2 biscuits made out to be sandwiches with a side of cheese hash browns. He smiled widely at me and I went to stack my plate. I was starving and my stomach growled angrily at the sight and smell of food. I had 2 plates and one was for just my waffles. I put 2 big Belgian waffles on my plate and smothered them in butter and syrup. On the other plate I put down scrambled eggs with sausage gravy, hash browns, and bacon. I didn't know if I was going to be able to eat it all, but I was starving. The workout this morning really depleted me from my energy. I was going to need it too, especially if Amber was taking me shopping. I sat across from Everest and dug in. It was the best breakfast I had ever tasted. The waffles were fluffy inside with the perfect crisp outside. The eggs were fluffy and the gravy was delicious. I sat and ate every single bit of the food on my plates with zero regrets. Holy crap, that was the best tasting breakfast. I wiped my mouth and looked up at Everest, who had an amused look on his face. It is pretty great, just wait for lunch. You know there will be all sorts of sandwiches with fries or onion rings. Our chefs go all out breakfast and lunch. Always served buffet style Monday through Friday. Saturday and Sunday mornings breakfast is buffet style too. We have so many people in the castle throughout the week, we want to make sure everyone is fed. Rarely anything is left behind. My mouth hung open. Goddess, I am going to be the size of this castle. Everest let out a deep belly laugh. He laughed so hard his eyes started to water, and when I pouted it only made it worse. What's so funny? I heard a feminine voice behind me. I turned to see Amber behind me and gave her a small smile. He thinks me being fat would be funny. I am sure he's laughing at the image now. Her eyes widened. What? He explained the food system here. The food, by the way, is probably the best food I have ever put in my mouth. So I made the comment, I'll be bigger than this castle. We both laughed and Everest was finally settling down. It is nice to finally see Mr. Brooding Pants laugh. Jameson commented as he walked over with 2 mounting plates of food. Thank goddess our bodies burn off calories way faster than humans. I looked over at Amber and she nodded as she stole a breakfast sandwich from Jameson's plate and shoved it in her mouth. I let out a giggle when he glared over at her. When she finished chewing, she took a swig of juice and cleared her throat. So, you ready to go buy an entire new everything? I sighed and shrugged. I guess so. I don't need much. Babe, no budget, get everything you will need. Business, casual, dinner party attire, and formal. All of it. Get it. If it takes more than 1 day, so be it. He shrugged his shoulders and stretched. It is what it is. But tomorrow I will go with you for your princess crowning dress. He smiled and I returned it. Okay. Fine. I halfway whined and looked over to Amber. I am not a big fan of shopping. Why not? It's fun, especially when you have no budget. She sighed, glanced at Everest, and I knew he was regretting those words now. I may have royal blood, but I didn't grow up with a lot of money. So I feel a bit guilty knowing that money could be better served throughout the community. Suddenly my hands and fingers became very interesting and my cheeks began to heat up. Well, how about this? We can put a budget on today and tomorrow. Clothes aren't cheap, especially what you are going to need. So what if I match whatever you spend and give it to the local orphanage? Everest offered with a smile. I looked over to him and thought about it. Okay. Well, that wouldn't make me feel too guilty then. For the children, yelled Amber. We all laughed and soon Amber and myself were on our way to go buy me an entire new wardrobe. We rode in a big black SUV that had tinted windows. Xander was in the front seat next to the driver. There were 2 other SUVs with us, one in front and the other behind us. It ended up being an extremely long day of shopping. I tried on so many outfits I lost count after the 10th store. We spent thousands of dollars, and didn't even get into formal wear. I had plenty of appropriate outfits to wear out in public for photo opportunities, dealings for fundraisers, charity events, or business attire. All of the SUVs were completely packed full. I wasn't even sure it would all fit in my closet. Amber was super supportive and over lunch we discussed details on the decorations for the princess crowning. Everything from the colors, the flowers, the centerpieces, the tablecloths, napkins, and even the chair coverings. I settled on a sparkling silver and navy blue with hints of soft yellows. Everything just has to be completely elegant, feminine, and strong. The strong part I liked. Feminine side I could take it or leave it. Amber said I would eventually get used to it, made me roll my eyes. We arrived back home a little after 4 and I was exhausted. I walked into the kitchen to grab a snack. I needed my energy to unpack and organize everything. It was going to take me a few hours to manage it all. My snack consisted of almonds and pistachios, pepperoni and ham slices, pickle spears, cheese cubes, and a strawberry yogurt with bottled water. It was delicious and gave me just enough energy to tackle my project while waiting for dinner. I made my way to the room, and when I walked in I expected bags to be everywhere. I looked around and only 4 bags sat on the sofa. I gathered the bags up. I walked into the master bedroom and into the very large closet, and to my surprise everything had been hung up and organized by style and color. Wow, this would have taken me ages to do. I said out loud to myself. How very thoughtful. I smiled and walked around admiring everything. My purses and handbags were together, my shoes were all out of the boxes and displayed perfectly. I heard a small knock and turned to see Everest leaning against the door frame with a smile. You did well, I see. Tomorrow we can worry about formal attire. I didn't hang any of this up, it would have taken hours. I explained. Oh yeah, I arranged a few of our female staff to come up here to unload everything. 5 lycans with that famous lycan speed will do that. He motioned to the entire closet. I only nodded when he moved quickly to me and wrapped his arms around me, pulling me close and tight into his body. His head dipped down and captured my lips with his own. My lips began working in unison with his own as his hands traveled to my backside, gripping and lifting me up to him. My legs wrapped around his waist and I locked my ankles together, pulling my body deeper into his own. He broke the kiss as his lips trailed along my jawline and down my neck. He stopped and kept his tongue in the curve of my neck to trace where his mark would soon be. I shivered and melted into his arms and let out a moan. My hips began rocking into his as he kissed along my collarbone to my shoulder, ripping away any fabric that stood in his way. Soon my t-shirt was ripped and exposing my chest to him. His eyes darkened at the sight of my nearly exposed chest. I bit my bottom lip and chewed on it in anticipation when suddenly his lips crashed against mine in hunger and need. I didn't realize it, but we were no longer in the closet but now in the bedroom. I only noticed when I felt the cool sheets touching the bare skin of my back. I was completely lost in him. Everest let out a growl as he yanked my shorts away from my body. His hand traveled along my thigh and gripped my waist. I could feel how hard he was and wanted to skip through it all. When his hand went between my thighs and felt my wetness, he knew I was ready for him. He showered kisses all over my face and body. Careful, you're going to get it started all over again. I teased, which caused his brow to raise. Don't threaten me with a good time. He chuckled and kissed my mouth softly. Come on, let's get cleaned up and ready for dinner. He stood and pulled me up, carrying me bridal style to the bathroom. Just as he set me down, a knock came from the door. He growled and looked me over before kissed my forehead. When another knock came, he wrapped a towel around his waist to go answer the door. The bathroom door was closed, but I could still hear the discussion. Sir, your father would like to discuss the younger southern prince has disappeared and no one can find him. The unfamiliar voice said, and I heard some rustling of papers. I heard Everest sigh, but he didn't say anything for a moment. Let the king know I'll be able to meet him in 20. I need to shower and change clothes. Yes, sir, was the response, and the door closed and I heard him walking into the bathroom. I was already in the shower and rinsing the shampoo away from my hair when he came in. He had a concerned look on his face and I knew this wasn't a good thing. Dinner was very awkward and the air hung thick with fear and danger. It may be made up and my very own anxiety eating away in my head. Charlotte felt it too, and she was a nervous ball of energy itching to be let out to calm herself, yet we were scared to go for a run alone. Soon, very soon, I promised her in my head. There was hardly any line of communication between the two of them, and Jameson and Amber were both fidgeting nervously in their chairs, not looking up from their food. I watched everyone carefully, and it was like I could feel their emotions. It felt like I was pushed up against a wall and I was being hammered with rubber balls, like the ones for when we played dodgeball in grade school. I cleared my throat to break the silence, and not a single person looked up at me. I had enough of this energy. Okay, so obviously whatever is going on is bad. Eyes shot to me from all across the room. Everything is fine. Amber didn't seem too convincing, and I only rolled my eyes. It is not. I can feel everyone's fear or nervousness. It's like a thick suffocating blanket. I may not be part of the inner circle, but I will be on Saturday, and anything I can do to help. We are not allowed to discuss matters with you, so let me stop you while you're ahead. King Randolph's voice was cold and his face was emotionless. I could tell whatever was going on put him on edge. The faint sound of clicking was heard and the door swung open. King Randolph's face changed in an instant as he stood and rushed over to the woman's side who entered. They kissed and held one another in a long embrace, and the air suddenly felt lighter. This must be Everest's mother, who had been on a mission to help women, the elderly and children 10 hours away. Her eyes locked with mine, and she had a warm, loving feeling to her that reminded me of my own mother. I suddenly felt sad and missed her terribly. I wished she was here to see it. I saw people communicating silently and I went back to being annoyed. Suddenly bits and pieces of the conversation began to drift through my mind, although it was hard to pin it to who it belonged to. It was almost muffled sounding. Dexter, yes, he is missing. Missing? Why is he missing? He left or fled his home with his own army. We need to discuss this privately. What about Avalynn? Should we include her? No. Yes, she will be of this royal pack soon. She needs to know. I agree, King Randolph. She should know. It is her that he is seeking anyway. Shouldn't she be aware? She said she's been dreaming and thought she was being watched earlier. Do you think? Enough of this. The voices came to a halt, but I hadn't noticed my white knuckles' death grip that bent the metal fork in my hand. Are you okay, dear? I heard a feminine voice ask. Who wants me? I looked at her, anger in my voice, then my eyes went around the table. Everyone was looking at me, shocked, and fumbled getting their words together, stuttering them out. Everest played it off me, of course. He wiggled his brows. It only earned him an annoyed scoff from me. He truly looked hurt. The male ego, so fragile. Charlotte laughed at that thought. Who is Dexter? I questioned, and I saw King Randolph stand from his seat and stare, possibly glare at me. A mixture of confusion and anger in his expression. What do you know about Dexter? He shot an angry look at Everest. I sighed and leaned back in my chair. Only he's missing, fled his home, with an army. It somehow involves me and you didn't want to tell me. Even though I have the right to know because he apparently wants me? I could hear you guys. I looked around at them all. It was muffled, but I do know you don't think I should know because I am not officially a part of the royal pack yet. That's fine, but I am apparently gifted. I don't know how it works, but I can hear thoughts. I shrugged. Everest smiled and looked at his mother. Mom, this is Avalynn, my mate. Avalynn, this is my mother, April. I smiled and she turned and smacked King Randolph's chest. Don't ever keep something of such importance away from family. Do better. Also, welcome to the family, dear, official or not. She glared at her mate and I was laughing inside. She put him in his place and he didn't seem to enjoy it much, even if he was partially laughing. Avalynn, I am sorry. I wanted to protect you from the information until I could find out more information. But I would like to discuss these dreams and the eyes you've been seeing out the windows. I may end up having yours and Everest's quarters moved to a more secure area and guarded. He offered up an apology and I wasn't angry with him in the least. He was trying to protect me in his own way and not add to any stress I was under from moving and becoming a princess in his kingdom. I respected him more for explaining his reasoning behind why he was doing what he did. I could tell everyone there at the table did as well. Thank you for that. I appreciate you being very honest with me. I smiled over to him. Dear, we would like you to be a part of the meeting later this evening while all of your things are moved. April offered over to me. I looked at Everest and he nodded his head. I can do that. I smiled widely at her. I would just like to go ahead and move you guys and not wonder when it's going to happen or if it's going to happen. I wouldn't be able to sleep at night knowing you both could be in possible danger. Anyway, let's finish this delicious meal before it gets any more colder. Dinner was delicious as usual. We discussed the upcoming ceremony, time and who was coming. It was different than an alpha ceremony where the entire pack could attend. Here it would only be the high-ranking Lycans and their families and the strongest packs, alphas and betas, along with their family. All in all, it would be about 450, give or take, people attending. It would start off with the crowning me as a princess and then we would mark one another publicly. After that was all said and done, we would eat and dance the night away. I fear though I would be having introductions to members of the kingdom. Maybe a few dances could be sprinkled in between the meet and greets. I couldn't help but still feel uneasy, like something big was going to happen in the future. I took a healthy sip of wine and swallowed it down to nerves of a big crowd. I want to go for a run. Drifted through my mind. I'll see if Everest will accompany us then. I responded to my Lycan. Oh, yes please. I would love to run with him. I could hear the excitement in her voice. I moved in my chair and leaned slightly into Everest's strong form. He looked down and pulled me more into him. I sighed happily and looked over and up to him. Before I could open my mouth to say something, Sarah interrupted everyone. Everest, I was wondering if you could help me with this project I am doing. Her eyes quickly shot at me and a quick smirk crossed her face. I bit the inside of my cheek out of anger. Sure, Sarah. He shrugged at her with a small nod. I sighed and looked over at Amber, who rolled her eyes. I'm not the only one who didn't care for her. Amber leaned over to me. So tomorrow we will train, shop, and go to the event coordinator with the color choices you have decided upon. Sounds exhausting, but okay. I knew it had to be done, so I didn't fight her. Charlotte would like to go for a run. I looked over at Everest and he smiled. Then a run we should go on then. Sarah, can you wait until tomorrow for my help? He looked at her and she nodded her head. You could tell that it annoyed her and that made me happy. I watched as she left the room, sulking in her failed conquest for the evening. Sarah POV. I don't know who she thinks she is, coming in here and stealing my prince and crown. I bet she knows a witch and put them all under a potion or spell. Well, I do know one thing though, she's messing with the wrong one. No one, and I mean no one, will steal my crown. I said into my empty room. I was angry and I would definitely get Everest back if it was the last thing I would do. Then, as if a light bulb went off in my head, remembering previous conversations there, well, she is being watched. I bet it's Dexter and I bet he's here for her. I bet everyone will go on a run with them, which means I have a few hours to find him and make a deal. I waited until I heard the others leave and it was nearly 11 by the time I felt comfortable to leave. I wore dark clothes and a black ball cap. I left the castle ground and slipped into the woods undetected. I sniffed the air as I walked ever so often until I came across an unfamiliar scent a few hours later and deep in the woods. It must be his. It has to be his. I followed the scent trail and as it got stronger, I got more nervous. I stood about 100 yards away from a small poorly put together shack. I am sure this is where he was hiding. Deep in the territory where patrols don't come, and I could tell that he used something to mask his scent when he closed in towards our land. My stomach flipped when he exited the shack. He was in his Lycan form, ready to fight. He was huge, not as big as Everest, and when our eyes locked he shifted back to his human form. He was devilishly handsome with caramel skin, golden honey eyes, his muscles rippled as he moved. I slowly approached until I was roughly 20 or less feet away. Dexter. I looked him directly in the eyes. I am. His voice was deep and sent a shiver down my spine. What do you want? Want to make a deal? You get her and I'll take him back. I asked before he could say anything else, and I watched a wicked grin make its way across his cheeks. Avalynn POV. I sat up in my bed, wet from being completely drenched in sweat, and looked over at my phone to check the time. I had 30 minutes before the alarm went off at 4:30 and decided to get up and get ready. It was time to do a training session and see where my non-existent skill level would be. Girl, give us more credit. You may not have training, but we have royal blood. We will be naturally stronger and quicker. She always seemed to always have a positive outlook. I could really learn from her one day. I got myself up, ready, and pulled my hair into a messy bun. Everest was walking into the bathroom as I was leaving and pulled me into his arms. He buried his face into the crook of my neck and inhaled my scent deeply. His chest vibrating with a satisfied sound that put a smile upon my face. I reluctantly pulled away and he instantly began to pout. Come back to bed. I sighed and shook my head. I wish I could, but you know I can't be late for training. He made a vibrating low growl sound and kissed my forehead. His arms tightened around me before his lips found mine. When he let me, I softly sighed. Have a good day. You too. Want me to stop by? He smiled. Well, no, only because I've never trained before and I don't want you to think I suck. He laughed and kissed me again quickly. Go train and have a good workout. I returned the kiss and nodded, leaving the comfort of our room and made my way down the stairs. I picked up a water, a juice, and a granola bar to eat while I walked to the training grounds. When I was leaving the kitchen, I ran into Amber, who looked like she just woke up. Hey! Sorry I am late. Let me grab an apple and water real quick. She zipped right by me and I leaned against the wall waiting on her. When she walked out we made our way to training together. We started by stretching every muscle, including the ones I wouldn't think about stretching. I was pulled aside by Caden, the head training officer, and we did some one-on-one. He started me off with a warm-up of running laps around the gym. I, surprisingly enough, completed the 25 laps around the gym easily. He then got to work on some basic moves because I had zero knowledge on how to not only protect myself but to counter-attack and fight someone else. It was a lot of information that I would need to take in and practice every day. I did well for never training before and my strength was more than I had anticipated. My muscles ached and my stomach growled as I was walking out the door. I looked down at my smartwatch and it read 8:30 a.m. I guess time flies when you're having fun. 3 hours of training flew by quickly. I made my way back to the main hall and into the kitchen and dining area. When I got closer to my destination, the smell of sausage and bacon filled my nostrils as I breathed in deeply. My stomach growled louder in hunger. I walked in and made a huge plate of waffles, eggs, sausage, and bacon. I ate until I was satisfied and went to get ready to go shopping with Amber. Today was finishing my wardrobe and tomorrow would be when we would start ball gown shopping for my crowning ceremony. It could take a few days to find the perfect dress. I hoped not though, only because I hated shopping and trying on clothes. Although having nice things that fit properly and hugged my curves perfectly made it better. When I walked into the bathroom to shower, I came faced with a bouquet of flowers and different makeup options. It may be silly, but I was so excited and giddy inside I couldn't wait to put it on. My shower was hot and I was sure that the devil himself couldn't stand the temperature of my water. The heat of the shower soothed my aching muscles and I stayed in there longer than I intended to. Once out I fixed my hair and did a natural makeup look, then got dressed. As I was sliding on my shoes the door knocked. I walked over and opened it and Amber was smiling back at me. "Ready?" She was way too excited and I nodded and offered a small smile. "Sure. Let's get this over with." I picked up my bag and walked out to go shopping. It was an all-day event and by the time we reached home it was dark and we were both exhausted and starving. I bumped into Sarah on the way out. She gave me a glare but never said anything. I wondered why she just wouldn't leave already when I walked with Amber into the dining hall. I sighed and sat at my spot in between Amber and Everest, who had his arm around me. I leaned into his comforting embrace and sighed happily, only sad when he excused himself for only a moment. Sarah walked in and sat quietly, almost as if she was struggling to either speak or hold back. I watched her closely. She was acting strange. When she finally began talking, it was to Amber about shopping and where we would be going the next 2 days. Bored with their conversation, I turned to Everest as he sat back down and we began discussing his day and my day. Sarah POV, I watched her leave with Amber from the trampoline. They were laughing as they walked together. Going shopping, I assume. I looked at my phone and checked the time before sending a text to Dexter. She's leaving now. They came back from the gym around 8:30. They will be shopping and going to town the next few days. They're taking the black SUV with 2 bodyguards riding with them. I bit my bottom lip before hitting send and walked back inside into my room. I sat on the small couch and thought about the previous night with Dexter. I hadn't planned on staying the night, but he was so persuasive and I caved into him. We both had pent-up desires that we let loose with one another. It was hot, rough, and dirty. My fingers moved to my lips as I was lost in the thought of him. I could definitely get used to him, but I knew it would never be happy. Not happy like I was with Everest. Before Everest left to go to the wolf pack, he and I had planned on making everything official and come out to the public of our secret relationship. Well, he didn't know that, but I was going to tell his father everything. I knew what I wanted, and I not only want him but I want to be queen. Instead he found his fated mate, who is apparently a secret royal that has been missing and in hiding. Good thing she's only had a few days of training, or she would be lethal. I also heard that she could hear thoughts. I wonder if that witch of Dexter's has any potion to block thoughts. A ding sounded from my phone that made me jump and brought me back to present and real life. It was Dexter returning my text. See if you can get information on where she will be shopping the next few days. Meet me with the information tonight. Wear something comfortable, we will be traveling the woods. I will be there tonight. See if your witch has anything to block her from hearing thoughts. She hasn't learned how to fully use her ability, but we don't want to risk it. I laid back on the couch and sighed, my eyes closing, trying to calm myself and relax some. I thought again of last night and our deal. I would give him information and he would do with it as he pleases. He wants her, and the minute he gets what he wants, he's taking her to the southeast coast somewhere. He has a masking potion and a bunch of special flowers that hides your scent when you place them around an area. The flowers, given by a witch, hide the scent up to 20 yards. The only way to overpower the masking of both is blood. I still can't believe he has a witch working with or for him. It's rarely unheard of a witch and Leekan mixing together and working together, because the two don't generally get along. I am happy though, because in the end I will get him, Dexter will get her. He will be mine, and that peach will be off to the east coast somewhere. I laughed to myself as a smile crossed my face before falling asleep and taking a small nap. Dexter POV. My phone dinged and I read the messages from Sarah. She was a useful little spy, easy too, which was a plus. She fed me the information that I needed and gave me the release that has been building for so long. I looked at my phone and messaged a few of my most trusted people. One of which who came to me, angry and wanting revenge on Everest. He was supposed to be away learning how to be a good little alpha, but instead he tipped me off on her whereabouts when he was sent off to learn. Stupid little wolf with a ego much too large. I hope that in Everest's quest to find his mate he kills him. I may just leave that bit of information behind as a distraction. I sat in my chair and pondered over keeping the wolf or giving him up. He became even more desperate when his little she-wolf left him for her fated mate. She traveled with him, and the first pack he went to, her mate was the future alpha, and she immediately left him. He couldn't stand to be there and he left, seeking me out and dropping the location of my sweet Avalynn. My phone dinged and I glanced at it. It was Sarah asking about the witch and a specific spell or potion. I was sure Calandra had something. I sent her a message. I need a potion to block the minds of a thought reader. Do you have anything? She responded quickly, yes, I will bring it with me along with other things in 2 days. Then I will be done with this once you have what you're after. See, of course. Give me enough to last a while. Once she's with me and the amount is correct, you are free and your debt is paid. I dialed Ryder's number and he answered on the second ring. Ryder, where exactly are you hiding out? I will need your assistance in a day or two. I have a hideout, masking scent, everything we will need for the grab. He sighed through the phone. I am about 2 miles outside their territory, hiding out and waiting. My father still thinks I am with that first pack. No one is going to know I am helping you until I take that Lycan's father's head off. I want to take everything away from him. He was gritting his teeth. Just like he took everything away from me. I want to watch him panic and realize that he has lost everything. He will watch his father die, his mate ripped away from him, then I will kill him. Keep that anger and hold on to it. Soon, soon. I told him before hanging up. The stupid wolf was a dead man walking. If he made it to kill Everest, not only would I be impressed, I would be stunned. The minute Everest gets word his father has been murdered, security is going to tighten and Everest will be out for blood. Which will make it extremely difficult for me to get Avalynn. That is why I need to use his father's death as a distraction and maybe take out a cell phone tower so it's hard to communicate. I sat at my small table and unfolded a map. I searched around the main house, familiarizing myself with the ins and outs of the place. I would need to take out all forms of communications, including their internet. I rubbed my eyes after a while and figured out a plan. I stood and stretched my muscles and peered out the window. Sarah would be here soon and she's going to show me everything I need to know for cutting lines of communication. I packed a black backpack full of explosives and the detonator. I planned on doing it remotely. When the explosion goes off, his father will be murdered, and I will make my move on Ava. A wicked smile crossed my lips as the door knocked. Ava POV. I woke up again from a nightmare, my body drenched in sweat and panting. Everest wrapped his arms around me and pulled me into him. I felt myself calming down almost instantly. His hands rubbed my back as I buried my face into his chest. What was it about? His voice was low and deep sounding. My mother. The attack. I made a small whimper sound. I couldn't do anything. I couldn't save her. I had tears streaming down my face as images of my mother's lifeless and bloodied body flashed through my mind. I closed my eyes tight, wishing those thoughts away. SHHHH. It's over and it wasn't your fault. He rubbed my back and I only nodded against his chest. We laid in silence for what seemed like hours as he held me tightly to him. He never let go and ran his fingers through my hair every once in a while. When my alarm went off, he let me go and slip out of the bed. I changed into my workout gear, kissed him goodbye and slipped away down the steps. I didn't feel like chatting and picked up a granola bar and slipped out before Amber could meet me. I walked the long way around to the gym to clear my mind of those ugly thoughts and memories that plagued me. I walked into the gym and was the only person there. I decided to go ahead and begin to stretch. Slowly people filled into the gym, some nodding and acknowledging my presence. I threw myself into training and worked as hard as I could, pushing myself to my own limits. Once done, I walked back with Amber in silence. I assumed she could tell I was in a bit of a mood, but still she offered silent support. I'll be down soon. I think we should stop for some coffee. I smiled over to her. Of course, I'll meet you in an hour or so. Sarah POV. I was exhausted, the night was long and tiring. We had so much to do and little time to do it. It wasn't just us covering what we needed. Some guy, Ryder I think, helped us. He is apparently the first mate to that piece and is going to help in distractions. He didn't talk much, only when asking for general directions on how something should be done. He was going to be the one to kill the king. I was fine with that, honestly. That old bastard never liked me, and with him out of the way that will make Everest king and I will be the queen. I smiled to myself as I tightened the zip tie to the base of communications and cell tower. I looked over my handiwork and smiled to myself, pleased with how it came out. We went back to the little shack and I handed Dexter my notes from dinner earlier this evening. They set the date for her crowing and acceptance into the royal family. She wanted time to train, so she asked for it to be pushed back. She wanted to be able to fully help protect her people properly. I scoffed to myself at that. Like she really cares about anyone here. She is a transplant and doesn't belong. 1 month from now her crowning ceremony will happen, along with them marking one another. I gritted my teeth at the thought of Everest wearing her mark. It made my blood boil so much so that I was clenching the papers in my hand. "You okay?" Dexter looked up at me. "Fine. Here, take these papers. This is her schedule the next 2 weeks. Pick a day and make it happen. Keep in touch." I turned to walk out, but he grabbed my hand, tugging me back. "You are not okay. Sit, have a drink, and relax. I don't want you going back hot-headed and doing something to endanger us all." He shoved a drink in my hand and I sat down, taking a swig of it and sighed. Dexter looked over the information I gave him as a wicked smile crept across his face. "Excellent information, Sarah, good job." A weird knock sounded and I watched Dexter stand and cross the small area and open the door. 2 men walked into the room and they all shook hands. "Everything ready to go, Dex?" the bearded dark-haired man asked. "It is, thanks to Sarah and Ryder who set up everything we needed." He nodded over to me. "She's a looker." The man with the hair colored of fire spoke in a low, rough voice. I involuntarily moved away from him and looked away. I heard him laugh and I glared in his direction, which only made him laugh even harder. "She's a spitfire too," he said between his laughing. I rolled my eyes and stood up to leave and Dexter shook his head. "Sit down, we need to discuss when and where this is going to happen. The escape routes and everything in between." "Okay, fine. Let's get to work then," I said to them all. We rounded up a plan. Ryder would get into the castle through one of the secret passageways by me. I would slip him inside and I gave him a map to study. I managed to get a copy of the king's schedule and handed it to him. With the time everything would line up, Ryder would be able to slip and murder the king. To keep me less of a suspect, we all agreed that Ryder should knock me out. The witch would be here tomorrow and we would go through a dry run of what was to happen. It was a great plan. We agreed that in 3 more days and this would happen. Here's to hoping that nothing goes wrong. I left the shack and made my journey back home. I yawned as I stumbled my way through the woods. I reached the tree line and waited. I watched my surroundings and walked to the pathway. I looked like I spent the entire night running in my Lycan form. I should let her stretch her legs, but she's been silent lately. She wasn't too happy about everything going on, but she will get over it. Unknown POV, everything in my being was telling me turn and run. I messed up and was desperate for help that one day. The journey to getting myself clean of the filth that has a way of finding me is almost over. As long as he keeps his side of the bargain. I sat down on a log in the middle of the forest and looked around the wooded area. I closed my eyes and put a cloaking spell around me. Safety first. I didn't need any rouge wolf, lichen, or vampire sneaking up on me while I slept. Not that I couldn't take on a few of them, but I am trying to keep a low profile. The less that know I'm involved with him, the better. I reached around my neck and took off the oval-shaped locket. I opened the locket up and looked at a small photo. A small snaggletooth smile, long blonde hair and vivid green eyes stared back at me. My eyes watered as I closed the locket up and shut my eyes. Memories replaying over in my mind, I sat sobbing. I pushed the tears off my cheeks and pulled out my sleeping gear. I cast out a protection spell and laid down. Sleep soon overcame my tired body and soul. While I slept, the same nightmare evaded my dreams, never changing and always the same. That horrible, horrible day will never escape my memories. Once I woke, I pushed onward through my journey through the thick brush. I couldn't wait to clean up and take off these tattered, worn clothes. The ground floor of the forest was dim, but the sun somehow managed to peek through and I could feel its warmth. It was as if it was a sign that no matter what, keep pushing forward and you'll get what you desire. I could only hope for the best outcome. Dexter POV. I paced the room, anxious of my witch's arrival. I know she would help me with what I needed. She would always come through, because if she didn't, she would never get back what was most important to her. Everything is going down soon and I need to make the last bit of my preparations to ensure it all runs smoothly. Sarah sent me a photo of Avalynn and she was beautiful. So beautiful I caught myself looking at her photo often. He never marked her as his, he will soon regret that decision. I couldn't wait to take her back to my kingdom, mark her, and make her my queen. Once everything back home goes the way I plan, of course. A knock sounded, dragging me away from my thought, and I walked over, opening the door. The witch was standing opposite and looking back at me. I gave her a nod and she walked inside with her bags. Good evening, Miranda. I hope the journey wasn't too rough. I smiled at her. It was fine. A few lichens passed by my camp, but lucky for me I had my cloaking spell and had my scent masked by my special flower blend. She set her things down and smiled back to me. It looked forced. They never knew I was there, of course. Anywhere to freshen up? I pointed to the small area in the corner. It isn't much. I usually just go down to the small creek and wash up. It's just a little ways out back, the backside, maybe 20 yards. She only nodded and out the door she went with a few of her things. The silence leaving me with my thoughts again. I found myself looking down at a photo of Avalynn, laughing. She would be able to brighten any room she entered. From what I have learned, she will also make a fair deciding queen. Thanks to her little rejected wolf mate. His other option would have been death, I assume. He, now, is choosing death as his option. Although he seems optimistic of the outcome, there is no way he will kill Everest. Everest will make him into wolf meat and hang him by his toes as an example of anyone thinking of doing what he done. By then we will be long gone and disappeared into my territory. I leaned back into the old wooden chair I was sitting in and closed my eyes for a small rest. I would need it because our final preparations would be tomorrow before she's mine. Soon I fell into a light sleep, only seeing her face in my dreams. She would be the calm to my storm, the reason of good in my takeover of the kingdom. The pure heart of gold to my slow-dying dark soul. Join our Facebook and WhatsApp group for more updates, link is given in description. Rest audiobook will be continued in next episode.